Dirty dealings, corporate battles, consumer woes. This is Evening 5. The government is in the process of finalizing sustainable development guidelines for data centres, which will be a precondition for state incentives. Speaking in the Dewan Rakyat, Minister of Investment, Trade and Industry Tengku Datuk Sri Zafrul Abdul Aziz said the guidelines, which should be finalised in the next 2 to 3 weeks, will include a set metric for carbon, power and water usage effectiveness. Several engagement sessions have been conducted with various government agencies and industry players. These guidelines are part of the government's efforts to achieve its sustainability goals, which include increasing renewable energy capacity to 70% and reaching net zero emissions by 2050. From 2021 to June 2024, Zafrul said the government has approved 89 digital economy projects amounting to 131 billion ringgit, with the majority involving data centres. According to him, there is currently 0.62 gigawatts of computing capacity for data centres in the country, accounting for 0.6% of total power consumption. He said his ministry recently held discussions with Tenaga Nasional, and with the plans set by the state energy giant, Malaysia will be able to meet the electricity demand for future data centres. Capital A said it has terminated an agreement with Ethereum Acquisition Corp, meant to pave the way for it to inject its AirAsia brand management business into the Nasdaq-listed SPAC for $1.15 billion, which is approximately 5 billion ringgit. In an announcement, Capital A said it called off the deal because Ethereum had received a delisting notification from Nasdaq's hearing panel in June. Ethereum is appealing against the notice, but Capital A said it still had the right to axe the deal under the terms and conditions of the agreement. Capital A had proposed to unlock value of the branding business Capital A International as part of its initial plan to address its negative equity position and exit its Practice Note 17 status. But Capital A CEO Tan Sri Tony Fernandes told The Edge recently the spin-off is no longer a priority, as a separate proposal to dispose of its aviation unit to AAX is sufficient to address the equity position. Separately, Capital A announced its regularisation plan proposal, which entails undertaking 6 billion ringgit in share capital reduction to set off its accumulated losses. It had accumulated losses of 12.87 billion ringgit at end June, with a negative total equity position of 11.24 billion ringgit. The KL High Court has clarified that Supermax Corp should be excluded from an earlier order to freeze the assets of Datuk Sri Stanley Thai in his divorce dispute. Judge Avril Marriott Peters said there was no evidence presented by the glove entrepreneur's wife, Tan Bee Gyok, to support the claim that Thai holds shares in Supermax. This follows the ancillary relief granted earlier that bars Thai from selling half of his assets and properties. The judge said Thai maintained that even to this day, he does not own any shares in Supermax, and noted that Tan failed to prove to the court that Thai held Supermax shares at the time the court order was issued. Peters added that official documents from both the Companies Commission of Malaysia and Supermax also do not indicate such ownership. She also said Tan's solicitors should not have asked RHB Bank to completely freeze one account solely owned by Thai, of which he receives his pay. She said Tan had overstepped the boundaries set by the court order, stressing that the order had specifically stipulated assets held solely in Thai's name. Petronas's renewable energy unit, Gentari, and Singapore's largest power generation firm, Senoko Energy, have inked a memorandum of understanding to explore importing hydrogen from Malaysia to Singapore. According to The Edge Singapore, hydrogen will be supplied by Gentari through a 20-year supply agreement, which is expected to commence by 2029. Both parties will explore the feasibility of the plan, along with possibly integrating the hydrogen into Senoko Energy's existing and new combined cycle gas turbines. The Singapore utility firm is aiming to cut 18,000 tons of carbon dioxide equivalent or TCO2e annually in the first phase, which would be equivalent to taking about 4,000 cars off the city-state's roads. Senoko Energy says this could potentially increase to 535,000 TCO2e in subsequent phases. Petronas established Gentari in 2022 with the aim of delivering a suite of renewable energy, hydrogen and green mobility solutions. Citing people with knowledge of the matter, Bloomberg reported yesterday that Petronas is considering selling a minority stake in Gentari to help expand the business. According to its sources, the stake could be worth $300 million or 1.3 billion ringgit to $500 million or 2.17 billion ringgit. The High Court judge who directed the return of the land title for the Duta enclave in Kuala Lumpur to Semantan Estate 1952 said it was the right thing to do. In the written grounds of his judgment released today, Dato' Ahmad Shahri Muhammad Saleh said it is essential to recognise the indisputable fact established in the 2009 High Court judgment, which was later upheld by the Court of Appeal and the Federal Court, that the original acquisition of the 106.54 hectare land was improperly executed by the government. This, he said, had resulted in the conclusion that there was no lawful acquisition by the government, and so it would be untenable to say the least, if not utterly ludicrous, to argue that the state can remain in possession of the land and not transfer the title back when it is in unlawful occupation of the plot. The government, which is presently appealing against Ahmad Shahri's decision, has been granted a stay of the judge's order for the land title transfer. The hearing of the appeal at the Court of Appeal, together with an opposing appeal by Semantan Estate to compel the government to surrender the land and buildings on the land, will be heard together on November 7th. The government is also negotiating with Semantan Estate for a settlement of the issue.